Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again Eric McCormick. Eric, good to have you back on, brother.
Hey Alfredo, how you doing, man?
Doing good, thank you.
Good to
And
see you
today,
again.
yes, likewise, it's been a minute, but it's always good having you on. And today we're going to be talking about the philosophy of cursing. So just looking at it from different points of view, kind of like if right and wrong. There is no universal right and wrong. Right and wrong is viewed by different people, but cursing is viewed differently by different cultures around the world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's probably contextual. You know, people have always used curses as a way to rectify injustice. A thing that they feel is unjust and they can't find agency through normal means. So they turn to the spiritual. So, for example, a good example from the Norse sagas and the Germanic lore is the Egil saga. There's a lot of magic in that, but in particular, it shows a curse and it shows the the entire thing, how to do it. It's pretty much a step-by-step guide. And Egil has been wronged by what he feels he's been wronged by the king, and he knows that there's no way to get justice. He can't kill the man because it'll be his death. He can't just allow the injustice to happen because he's going to be outlawed if he does, and he's not going to find any kind of legal rights. He's not. There's no way to rectify it. So he turns to the spiritual, and the way he does it is he takes a pole and sacrifices a horse and puts the horse head on top of it and puts it in sight of the man's house and carves maleficent runes on it. And then what's interesting is he not only curses the king and queen, the curse against the king and queen is very brief. He just says, I curse you. But then the specific curse is he curses his own ancestors and the spirits of the land that they will find no rest until they aid him in righting the injustice.
Mm.
So instead of attacking at them directly and spiritually, he sort of appeals to spirits to intercede for him.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because I think maybe a misconception that people have about Norse curses is that they're all brutal death spells, but really the case is they were more often about shame, altering fate, uh, loss of divine or communal support. They feared more dishonor and exclusion far more than an actual brutal death curse. Is that right?
Well, yeah, that too. And also the idea of what is a curse, I think, comes down to whether or not it's good for the community, for the group, or harmful to the group. And I don't think that's just a Norse or a Germanic framing of the idea. I think that even when you look at, say, the witch trials that happened much later in history, um, still much of what the witches would be charged with would be causing the bread to go bad or, causing weevils to get into the grain or making a bad round of crops or making it not rain. It was not until the magic was a detriment to the community did it become sort of outlawed and frowned upon. Nobody minded the local healer when their kid had a fever and they needed somebody who knew herbs and medicines to get the fever to break. But when things don't go your way, people tend to also look for a scapegoat.
Right, right. Now, one truth is that there is no universal magical ethic. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
as far as like, not everybody looks at it. Not everybody looks at magic the same and interprets it the same. They're always going
well,
to have. I mean, what's right for one group of people over here may not be the same as what's right for these people over here. So they're always going to look at it in different ways.
That's true. And the reasons people turn to magic, well, there's a lot of correlation. A lot of there's a lot of differences between cultures, of course, how the magic is actually practiced. And again, turning to the Germanic and the Norse, um, everybody essentially practiced magic to some extent. It wasn't seen as something that was reserved for special holy men or certain people that knew secrets and were inducted into secret rituals. I mean, there was certainly some of that too, but you would also have everyday people carving runes onto their sword and trying to cast spells that way and using rune magic. And um, women, especially, were seen as having prophetic um, wisdom and abilities. And that's not just from our lore, but that's from the outside people looking in. So I think that there's some cases of curses, particularly Romans, because we have a lot of Roman folk magic also that was preserved. And people would curse people with very petty things like to make somebody's clothes itch or to have them overcome with bouts of sneezing and stuff like that. You know, things that would not be particularly fatal, but would be mildly annoying. And it's really just like, I think it's probably mostly a mental exercise to feel like you've done something, like when you have no agency, you know, you reach out to any sort of agency there is. And I think that is the essence of the curse. Is A curse is the spiritual equivalent of a punch in the mouth, because it's gonna get the job done and get the point across, but at the same time it's probably not the best method of doing that. The,
Yeah, I mean, it people, well, the thing is, people, first of all, I will say that before throwing a curse, it's good to just do a divination and kind of see how things will go. Um, maybe I'll use maybe two or three different methods of divination and kind of look at it from different points of view and say, okay, I can go through with this because I can see that so and so, may go this way, that way. Okay. Now, some people, if they see that there's definite, if they look at the consequences, they'll accept it and say, okay, I can accept these consequences. I'll just go ahead and go through with it. Some people may not be able to handle that or handle that at the time. It just depends on the situation and the person. So it's very subjective.
in the Norse lore specifically, they talk about specific curses and they put them side by side with other types of magic and other types of spells. You know, there wasn't this concept of, oh, this is dark and this is light. It's all a matter of what you do with it, really. A curse, if you're using a curse to rectify an injustice in what you perceive as a right manner, then is that still dark magic? Or does then
Well,
dark magic become light magic? I mean,
it's
it's really splitting hairs when you go to define things like that. It's hard to
yeah,
do.
and I don't think that um I don't think that you can really take, magic and just make it cut and dry like that, where you could just say, well, this is dark, this is light. Because like we were talking about earlier, is that, everybody has different viewpoints, everybody has different philosophies, and everyone has their own version of what's right and wrong and what benefits them and what doesn't benefit them. So I think that's why right and wrong tends to change over time because it's not set in stone. But then again, light magic and dark magic, if people want to look at it that way, it doesn't stay the same. It changes over time, depending on the time you live, depending on where in the world you live, and depending on the mindset of people within that community. So,
Yeah, I think that curses are generally used in situations where people are afraid. A lot of curses that you see are done against, in the Norse tradition particularly, were either done against the incoming Christian priest, where they would put knitting poles up and try to try to get the spirits to expel the priest from their land, and against monarchs and against people that they couldn't otherwise seek satisfaction from. I think a lot
Mm.
of times traditionally cursing was done out of desperation and a sense of lack of agency mostly. And I think even today, when people use a curse, it's often because they don't want the social confrontation that will go along with more mundane ways of resolving the situation. Or maybe they're in a situation where they can't. Maybe it's like a boss at work or something where they don't feel they have proper agency to express themselves. And so they
Mm.
turn to the spiritual to try to seek some of that satisfaction and retribution. Whether the curse itself then goes on to have an effect or not, I think that's what it's born from a lot of times, is that sense of seeking of agency and that trying to rectify some sort of injustice in your own mind.
Well, but then again, that could be looked at just as magic in general. So, I mean, yeah, if someone feels like they're cornered and they have no other way out, so they turn to magic, you could look at that as, the defensive magic, or just, it could be just something as simple as getting a job promotion or moving up. If they see like there's no other way around uh, the corporate structure or whatever kind of work they do, they can make a way.
I,
So,
I see what you're saying, but I think with cursing in particular, it stems from this sense because with other types of magic, it like say, for example, you're going to cast a money spell. You're not going to cast the money spell by itself and then not do anything else and expect for your finances to be right. You're going to do other things in the mundane world along with that. You're going to,
right.
save your money. You're going to try to get
It,
some money. You might sell something that you're going to do
right.
other things to supplement that.
And,
But I
and
think with cursing in particular, it's done from a last resort type situation where you've tried to endure it at this point. Say a particular person is causing you grief, you've probably done a lot of other things before you turn to magic to try to deal with that situation, probably almost everything before
right, right.
you
And that should
go.
be the last resort pretty much to just about anything. I think anyone in their right mind would use that as a last resort if they understand what it's all about and understand how energy works. Because, uh, practitioners who can curse, they might turn to something less destructive, like let's say binding or banishing or something like that. Um, but if they feel like there's, like you said, like they're desperate, then I guess that would go ahead and empower them. But then again, if you want to look at it from a psychological point of view, someone who even just if you just make someone think that they're cursed, them just thinking they're cursed can bring them anxiety and can bring all kinds of things that they bring in their world themselves.
Absolutely.
Let's say you don't do nothing, but you kind of hint that, oh, I'm a witch and I did this and I did that, but you really didn't. But then again, they focus on it so much that they just bring all that stuff into their life by themselves by
Well,
focusing on it.
a really good example of that is the knitting poles, because yes, there was a curse, but imagine being a Christian priest and you show up in this strange barbaric land where all these people have all these really bloody pagan rituals that they do, and you wake up one morning and now there's a dead horse head pointed in front of your door with all these crazy symbols crudely scratched into it, in the dark of night. That would probably be a little bit unsettling and it would probably affect your mental stability
Right.
throughout the day. an example of words being used to curse without even intending it to, and the effect that it can have on you psychologically is a real simple, like, let's say there's a boy and he's in sixth or seventh grade, starting middle school, and he has a crush on a girl and he sends her a note, you know, will you be my girlfriend? Yes or no? And she marks an X on no and sends it back to him. And without even meaning to curse him, she's sent him into what could potentially, for this boy, if he doesn't like find some way to pull out of it, it could be a lifelong cycle of rejection. And she could have really cast a curse on him without even meaning to, but it's definitely going to affect him for the rest of the day. He's definitely going to have a bad rest of his day, you know probably the next day too. And if anyone else finds out about it, probably a bad week.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
simple.
definitely. It could just be something simple as you know, speaking something into existence, literally cursing at somebody, using bad language and putting them down. That's very powerful. Um, Words in general.
especially when you do it to a receptive subject. And a lot of it comes down to how receptive the person is to being cursed, because some people are hardened to it and used to it. And it doesn't matter to them what you say. But if you say that to a child,
Yeah,
especially to a child that's looking to you for nurturing and support and to be taught the ways of the world. And if you then tell that child, oh, you're stupid, oh, you can really cause that to happen within the mind of that child, and it will have external effects too.
yeah, definitely, definitely, and it would be like a snowballing effect because then he'll go ahead and influence everyone else in his circle who is not strong mentally, and it can go a long ways.
There's certain types of narcissists that you see this in, especially they they will break the people around them down, and you think, well, why are the people putting up with this? And the answer is because they only seek receptive audiences. The people that won't put up with it, they won't have time for them in their lives. They won't make it a point to be around them. It's the people that are receptive to that sort of negative energy that they're putting out, that they're drawn to, that they keep around them.
I think what that comes down to is how strong is somebody mentally. How much can they take? How much does it take for them to buckle under pressure? Depends on the person.
Yes, like with anything mental and emotional. But when you're talking about cursing specifically, I think that part of the curse is, of course, breaking that barrier, that sort of untouchable barrier that the person has around them, or whatever's keeping you from being able to deal with the situation in a normal way. In
Right.
one particular traditional Norse curse, it was three Thurisaz runes and three Isa runes. So the point of the three Thurisaz runes is to break the resistance, to make way for the spell. And then the Isa, of course, freezes them in place, takes them out of the picture.
Mhm.
Neither rune is particularly a curse on its own, but it's the context in which they're used and the way that they're aligned. And then that was, of course, carved onto a knitting pole with the horse head on top of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, with symbols, the subconscious mind speaks in symbols. And even for somebody just to see that, that would have a psychological effect, whether they
Well, if
realize it or
somebody is so angry at you that they cut the head off of their horse and nailed it to a pole in your yard, that is something in itself.
not. Yeah.
You would probably think that you might be in the wrong neighborhood.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, let's put it this way. If belief causes harm, directing belief would be a form of magic.
Yeah.
I mean, however way that you want to go about
So, how do you feel about some of the common tropes and stereotypes about cursing? Like, there's that old saying, if you cast a curse, it's going to come back on you 3 times.
it. I don't necessarily believe that. Um,
I don't believe it at all, but I don't believe energy works that way, really. I mean, I see the point of it, but if you
yeah,
surround yourself
this
with negativity, my problem with cursing isn't that I think that there's some kind of like metaphysical woo-woo along with it. It's that I don't want to occupy my mind and my attention to another person, good or bad. Like I don't have time to waste thinking about somebody that doesn't want me to do good and somebody that's not somebody that's like opposed to me. I don't know. I don't I would rather remove them from my life entirely than waste the energy of trying to make sure they do bad, if that makes sense.
yeah, sort of like out of sight, out of mind, that
Yeah.
type of thing. And of course,
Or
it's out of
just
your
move
mind.
on and move around.
Yeah,
Branch off and go your separate ways. I
yeah,
have seen people particularly cast cursing magic that was particularly effective. And I will say it doesn't matter if you tell them that they're cursed or if, to the psychological thing. I believe that you can make bad things happen to people through sorcery.
yeah. I mean, if you want
And
to
I
go
don't
ahead
think it's all
and
psychological, and I don't think it's all
now
just like
it can be
energy
psychological, but then
manifestation.
again, you can go ahead and place a curse or a hex on somebody, and it'll affect them whether they know about it or not.
Exactly.
Energy does work that way. So, like again, it depends on the situation, and it depends on how you want to direct that energy. If you direct energy to go that way, and you have a strong focus, and you're very strong mentally, it'll go that way. But then again, someone who does, if they know that they're in touch with someone who's very weak minded, they can just do some suggestion and then the person would bring it into their life anyway. It depends on the person, who the person is that you want to go at, who your target is. You have to know your enemy. You have to know, how do they think? What kind of personality do they have? Um, and after talking to somebody, you can get to know them and figure out how you want to go about it. Or if you don't, let's say you can't, you don't have any contact with them, you can just do some divination and find out for yourself without even talking to them. The cards will tell you, the runes will tell you, however you want to go about it, finding out the information.
Yeah. There's it's it, there the way we look at it, I think, has changed a lot throughout history, but we're still doing basically the same stuff. We still use our magic for the same stuff that people always have. And I think a lot of it is a sense of the outsider and sort of the people at the fringes of society, at the edges of it. It's becoming more and more mainstream for sure, but magic has always been used to sort of empower people and to give people a voice when they didn't otherwise have it. Um, Particularly marginalized subsets, people are always looking to the other as a source of spiritual wisdom. For example, when you look at the slaves in Haiti who produced voodoo, or as the Roman Empire was coming in, the Germanic people that lived at the fringes of society, as what people saw the more civilized world was sweeping through, or even now when people find their spirituality, a lot of times it comes from a place of outside and otherness. from a place of pain. The traditional methods aren't working. I'm talking about people that came to this, not people that were raised with this sort of metaphysical and magical lifestyle or paganism. A lot of people were fortunate to be brought up that way. And in today's society, I think there's a lot of people who were brought up Christian, or at least with the Judeo-Christian trappings around their
Yeah.
homes, and then later found magic and spirituality and realness of that.
Well, I think that it's becoming more popular now because as more and more information is available to people, they're finding out that religion is not the answer. What their fathers and their forefathers have used, that that's not the way to go. So then they go ahead and seek out something else. Then they find the magic within, because I believe that finding your magic is not necessarily going to the bookstore and buying a spell book and then doing that or whatever. It's got to come from within. Now, how do you look deep, deep within? Um, Life kicks your ass. When life kicks your ass, and you're able to peel away the layers and look deep, deep inside, and then you're able to just pull out who you really are, and then just look at your core, and then you're able to find your magic from there. Um, that's one way to go about it. That's what that's in a way that's how I found my magic. Is just kind of
I
just
think that's a common, I think it almost has to be that way. And I think that's why initiation exists. And that's why you hear stories of shaman undergoing extreme physical um, initiation, so to speak, going out into the desert, fasting for days until they had visions. People understood that they had to suffer
yeah,
to
yeah.
learn
It's
it.
I think that what all that has in common, whether you're someone who has gone through a lot in life and had to take that hurt and look within, or whether you're being initiated and you're having to fast or wander in the desert, et cetera, et cetera. I think what it is that this matrix that we live in, this illusion, especially modern day with all the distractions with social media and with Hollywood and with all this different static that's going around, it's blinding you from seeing spiritually what really is and what your potential is. So I think, let's say for instance, with fasting or just having a lot of self-discipline, you're peeling the layers of reality away so that you can get rid of all this noise and see and sense what's really what, and then build off of a foundation from there. Because if you're constantly distracted from all this static and all this stuff that's going on that the world wants to put in front of you, you're not going to find it. You have to peel the layers away. Now, whether that's through life kicking you in the ass, or whether that's going through some initiation where yeah, I need to affect my, do this and that to my senses so that I can see behind the layers and see what is. And then kind of, I guess in a sense, change the vibration so that you can get in tune with what is. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And that's exactly what they talk about in the Havamal when Odin hangs on the tree for 9 nights, wounds himself with a spear, and suffers beyond the limits of what any mortal man could endure so that he could learn magic. The whole reason that that story exists is because it shows us that there's a price that has to be paid. You don't get something for nothing ever.
Exactly.
And that we have this idea that if we are to gain great power, then there has to be some form of sacrifice for it. And that's common in our movies. I mean, if you look at like Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker has to go out to the outer rims of the galaxy and live in these crazy conditions and have this weird little guy beat him up. And that's all part of learning the magic of that universe.
Yeah.
And it, you know, you can't just learn it being raised happily in a good home and having a good life and then going to college and getting a
No.
good job. There's an idea that it wouldn't be fair if that person also had magic too.
Well, not only
You
that,
know what I'm saying?
it
We
would
have a
cause
sense
imbalance
of,
in the system.
we
Go
sort
ahead.
of have a sense of magic as a balancer of the scales, of the cosmic scales. So you you have to bleed and hurt for it, and then you're owed something in return a little bit. Like you don't just bleed for the sake of bleeding and then, oh, and if you would like to do what I asked you to do in the spell, then go ahead and do that too. But take the blood anyway, that's yours. That's not how you phrase it. That's not how you put it. There's a clear idea of pay for play. I did
Hmm.
this. I hurt. I suffered. Now you owe me. Now I want mine back.
Yeah, and you need to. You can't just be handed it to it. Like we were saying, it would cause imbalance in the scales of existence. And plus, it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to work. And also, you wouldn't be able to hold on to it. The energy, your energy, would not be able to hold on to what you're given, and plus, you would misuse it. So, I think that yeah, that existence, the gods, they see to it that, like you said, you gotta pay before you can play, and that's just the way it goes. That's just a universal truth. So,
Suffering with intention.
mhm.
Suffering
Right,
with purpose. It gives
right,
us the idea that our suffering was not for nothing.
right.
If nothing else, we gained wisdom from it.
Exactly, which is far
You
more
know,
valuable, right, than what this world would have you believe is valuable. So, but yeah, that's it's been a good chat, Eric. Um, thanks again for coming on.
sorry I didn't have much time to prepare, man. It
No,
was
it's all
kind of
good.
like, yeah,
It's all good. Me and you, we just started talking and it just flows. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think we
We
got
never
something
end up talking about the thing that we set out to talk about.
good.
We
It's
always
all
kind
good
of try to.
because it's all good. The subscribers like it anyway.
All
So
right.
yeah. But anyway, anyone who's watching, go ahead and check out Eric's social media links below in the video description. Give those a follow. Eric, thanks again for coming on, brother.
Thanks, Alfredo. I appreciate you having me.
No problem. Everyone who's watching, make sure you like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.